Hello everybody, it's me, Mr. Wallace, and in today's upload we are talking about sodium flushing. So I'm gonna have to divide this video in several fragments. In the first one I will explain really briefly what is sodium flushing, why people want to sodium flush, what are the possible health complications, benefits, and also what I did as an experiment to see whether this whole sodium flushing works or not. So starting from the basics, sodium flushing has grown a lot of interest within the beauty industry, especially over the last several months, because apparently it can help people to improve facial strikiness by basically manipulating the sodium levels within the body, which can improve your overall aesthetics by decreasing bloatiness and how much water you retain within your body, and therefore basically making you look leaner without having to lose fat. If that makes sense. So you see, nowadays a lot of people talk bullshit. They try to make really stupid transformations, showing progress that hasn't been achieved. So basically they take a bad picture of themselves where they like, and then another one where they all look serious and stuff, and then on the comments people are like, how did you do it? Buy my course, bro, I got you. Which is all bullshit, and I'm gonna tell you why. First and foremost, sodium flushing can lead to great results, but it's all temporary, all right? Especially in the way that those guys are doing it. So let's step back even further. Let's explain what is sodium more in detail. So sodium is a mineral found mostly in table salt in our diets. Okay, so table salt is formed from chloride and sodium. Put them together and you got salt, right? And we like salt because it has sodium and chloride, which are good minerals. They're really good for ourselves. Sodium is involved in so many enzymatic reactions. It's involved in cellular function, cell signaling, nerve function, muscle contraction, so on and so forth. Okay, and another one of its functions is, as I said previously, water retention and regulation and the transportation of nutrients in our bodies. Okay, so sodium is not our enemy, quite the opposite. It's a powerful ally that we need to be healthy and have a great state of homeostasis. Okay, so the main organ that is involved in the regulation of sodium absorption is the kidney. All right, so basically when your sodium levels are too high, the kidney will try to excrete them through the urines. Instead, when they are too high, when they are too low, they will try to retain as much sodium as possible. All right, so when it comes to sodium flushing, what we are aiming for is to disrupt the regulation of sodium of our kidneys, and this can be done in several ways. Okay, so we got things called diuretics, which can help us to piss more basically, and therefore excrete more sodium. And something that has grown a lot of popularity is sodium flushing through the upregulation of potassium. Okay, so what is potassium? Potassium is another essential mineral that basically does the opposite of sodium. So it helps to reduce blood pressure. It helps to basically decrease how much sodium you have in your body through the excretion of the sodium itself. Okay, so we got something called, oh fuck, maybe it's gonna be too detailed, but whatever. We got something known as the sodium potassium chain, okay, pump. And basically sodium goes in our cells, and then through sodium, through potassium actually, so sodium goes into the cell, and then through potassium we can basically decrease how much sodium is within the cell. Okay, and when this sodium is in too high doses, what happens is that it leads to absorption of too much water, and which then leads to increased blood pressure. But through potassium we can do the opposite. Okay, so people basically are trying to consume more potassium to decrease how much water we are retaining in our bodies, which, guess what, it's going to make you look more striking, defined, lean, blah 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 blah. You got it. But what is the problem? So the sodium potassium pump is a really important thing in our bodies when it comes to maintaining our state of homeostasis, which is the correct functioning of our body, health, longevity, and regulation of all the different mechanisms that allow us to basically live. All right, so when you go and disrupt this fine balance, we end up running in some issues. All right, so the first of which are cramps caused by an electrolyte imbalance. Okay, so potassium and sodium are also involved in the electron transport chain, which is meant to produce ATP. Okay, so ATP is the main energy currency in our bodies. You can think of it as basically oil for cars. Okay, so we run, we talk, we live, we feed based on ATP. So when you are basically disrupting the sodium potassium pump, you are screwing with your metabolism too. Okay, and that's the surface level. It's gonna make you feel more tired, it's gonna make you have cramps, it's going to basically make you feel like garbage, essentially. Okay, but that's surface level shit. When your sodium levels end up running too low, you end up having the risk of hyponatremia, which involves in really low blood pressure, which then can cause other issues. Okay, so when it develops enough, it can even lead to the expansion of your brain. Okay, because there is nothing holding together the nerves and the blood vessels and stuff, which then start to expand due to low blood pressure. Okay, and that can lead to permanent brain damage, seizures, and possibly even death. Indeed, it can lead to death. And yes, you then be like, okay, so when this happens, I can simply start to consume sodium again, right? Yes and no, because your body is going to be in a difficult state. Okay, because when you reach this point, you have basically worked up your kidneys so much that now their ability to absorb and reabsorb sodium and to regulate excretion with potassium and all of that is going to be disrupted to the point that you may or may not fully be able to go back to your previous state of homeostasis. You might even have to rely on pills and willingness stuff for a while before you can go back to your normal levels of health. Okay, so you have to be really careful with this shit, because on TikTok you see people talking about all of those crazy pills, all of those crazy products that can help you to decrease your sodium levels, but they don't really care about you, and even if they did, they are too stupid to actually think thoroughly about what the complication of doing such a foolish thing could result long term. All right, so I told you all of this, and I still went through my sodium flush phase. However, before I began all of this, I had to point out a few things. I had to know exactly what my sodium intakes were like, what my potassium intakes were like, how much water I was drinking, what were the reference intakes based on the NHS, because I live here in England, and basically try to inform myself as much as I could about the topic, and then elaborate a strategy that could specifically help me to reach those results while also minimizing as much as I could the risks. Okay, and how I did it. So think about this. In the UK, the average consumption of salt is roughly 8 grams every day. Okay, 8, 7.5, whatever, which converts to roughly 3.2 grams of sodium on a daily basis. Okay, but the recommended intakes are much lower. We shouldn't consume more than 5 grams, 6 in some texts, okay? They say 6, in some they say 5, but let's say 5 grams a day, alright? Which compares to roughly 2.3 grams of sodium on a daily basis. Whereas for potassium, the daily recommendations are 3.5 grams a day, and most people are consuming below the recommended intake. So the first thing that I noticed was that people were consuming too much sodium and not enough potassium, okay, which is what leading to people being more bloated. So by default, I knew that by just increasing a little bit my potassium intake and decreasing just a little bit my sodium intake, I could, in theory, sodium flush and decrease my bloating levels without having to go through any of the nasty side effects, because those are the recommended intakes. So by default, if I'm consuming more salt than I should be consuming, and by increasing my potassium intake, that should help me to improve my facial features, to look cleaner and to be healthier, which is the main goal that we are looking for here. Remember, we are seeking health, and the looks and whatever we want to call it is simply the byproduct of being more healthy. Okay, so now that I knew that those were the recommended intakes and those were how much people were consuming on a daily basis, I had to compare this to what I was doing myself. So I wasn't consuming enough water to begin with. I was drinking roughly 1.5 to 1.8 liters on a daily basis. I know it's atrocious, but that's what I was doing. And I was consuming way too much salt, like way too fucking much. I say that the average intakes in the UK is 8 grams. I was consuming anywhere near between 9 to 10 grams of salt on a daily basis, and also consuming way too little potassium. Okay, so as I said previously, the recommended intakes are 3,500, and here in the UK people are consuming anywhere near between 2,500 to 3,000 grams. Well, I was consuming a little bit more than that, but still nowhere near enough. And I was clocking at roughly 3,200 milligrams a day, okay? And if I say grams earlier, I meant to say milligrams. And 3,500 milligrams is 3.5 grams. 3.2 grams is 3,200 milligrams. But I guess you know that, hopefully, because that would be quite embarrassing. Nonetheless, going back to the previous point, I knew that I had to change something. And for me, sodium flush, at least at this given point, was more about going back to what the recommended intakes are, as opposed to how much I was consuming, okay, if that makes sense. And by doing this, I basically managed to improve my facial features, strikiness and whatnot, by simply going back to what I was supposed to do, as opposed to doing any crazy shit like some of you guys are doing. Because I'm telling you, I see people giving advices on TikTok telling kids that are 11, 12, 13, 14 years old to like have a 1 to 10 ratio of potassium, and like, why do people have this type of content online? Why are they not banned? Why do TikTok even allow these guys to post shit? Because people are actually doing this. Even on the comments of the sodium flashing video that I made a couple of days ago, they were like, yeah bro, you should consume 1 to 8 ratios and that's gonna make you look like Jordan Barrett. And like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys, honestly? So stop doing this nonsense. You can sodium flush by simply decreasing your sodium intake, but by really small amounts, okay? Because chances are that you are consuming too much salt and you are not consuming enough potassium. So don't decrease your salt intake too much, don't increase your potassium intake too much. Try to find a balance, because in life it's always about being balanced. Okay, so I'm still consuming like 7.5 grams of salt every day, which converts to roughly, I think, 3 fucking grams or so sodium, which is not optimal, I know, but I also started performing a lot of HIIT training, okay, which stands for interval training, and basically that helps you to sweat a lot more. Okay, so you can sodium flush per se, you can decrease your sodium concentration even through the act of sweating, because you are simply getting rid of it through extracellular respiration and stuff. Okay, so I simply started consuming way more water. Now I'm drinking almost twice as much as I did, so like 3.5 to 4 liters on a daily basis, depending on how much I'm exercising, how much I'm out, how much I'm walking and stuff. And yeah, that's been a really good process, because these are type of changes that I want to maintain long term and that are sustainable. Okay, because this is what you should be doing in the first place. Instead, when you are performing 1 to 10 push-it ratios, on top of screwing with a sodium potassium pump and messing your health in so many levels, you are also being at risk of simply regaining that shit back as soon as you stop sodium flushing. Alright, which is it's kind of stupid, because you are basically trying to get leaner, to look leaner, and do all of this nonsense that is going to make you feel like garbage. It's gonna make you hate the food that you eat and stuff, only for the sake of regaining all of that stuff back, plus the rebound, because now your kidneys, unless you actually fuck them up completely, are going to be a lot more susceptible and sensitive to sodium absorption as opposed to excretion, if that makes sense. So for a couple of days and weeks after you stop sodium flush, you are going to look way worse than you did before you did it. So yeah, I think that there is not really that much to cover about this subject, like unless I expand it to like the wall, the bloat fucking discussion, which I might or might not do depending on how well this video does. But sodium flushing is not the only way that can help you to improve your strikingness and overall structure and leanness or whatever, because several other methods that have been proved to work in a much better way and are a bit more sustainable, if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, if you want it, write it down in the comments, leave a like, repost the video, I don't know, send it to your friends, your grandma, your cousins, your nephews, your children. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I will cover more the aesthetic side of deploting yourself on the next upload. I didn't really want to dive too much on the details on this one, because then I know for certain, especially in the beginning, that kids will just end up listening to 2 or 3 words and then simply go and do whatever they shouldn't be doing, which is going for bullshit ratios, and then screw themselves up for a long time and basically risking their health for no reason whatsoever. So sodium flushing can be good, especially if you are suffering from hypertension, edema and other health complications, because that's going to help you to reduce your blood pressure and to improve your cardiovascular health and so many other things, such as like decreasing your risk of strokes. But it can be just as bad when done excessively, so be careful with that. And yeah, see you on the next one, boys.